Good morning, Keller Williams. Welcome to Tuesday morning. First of all, we've got a couple of speakers this morning. Our first speaker is going to be Matt Suter, and follow after Matt, I'll come on and give you a quick update on COVID-19, and then David Whalen, the Director of Technology, will come and give you sort of an overview of all the work he's done over the last 2.5 months and give you some direction on where we're going. But first of all, let me introduce you to Matt Suter. Matt Suter was a former OP at a market center and a regional director for one of the regions in the US of A. Today, Matt's going to talk to us about 4 mistakes lead agents are making today and how we lead your way out of them. So please welcome Matt Suter.
Okay, yeah, cool. All right. So good morning. I hope everyone's doing well. So let me apologize if the lighting isn't super fantastic. I'm actually back on the road starting this week, sitting in a hotel where had a little bit of technical difficulties and a little bit of poor lighting. So we will power through it. But good morning. My name's Matthew Sutter. It's great to be with you guys today. Hope you're having a fantastic start to your Tuesday. And we're going to get kicked off. A little bit about myself before we start. I have been actually with Keller Williams. I'm assuming most people on this call are with KW. If you're not, welcome. Glad you're here. I've been with Keller Williams since about 2007 or so. Back in the 2000s, I had a real estate team that sold a couple thousand units, then transitioned into the team leader role. I've been a general manager. I'm currently an operating principal of 2 Keller Williams offices in Florida. And I also served as the regional director for the Michigan, Northern Ohio region. However, today I primarily spend most of my time as a business and leadership coach with Glover U, which is the circumstances that I'm here with you guys today. I primarily work with top performing agents. Right now I have a coaching clientele that does over $2 billion in cumulative annual volume. And so really that's where I'm going to teach from. That's really where my passion is helping high achieving agents and agents that have the potential to become high achieving really build their business and leadership skills. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So as we introduce this content, really where this, what I'm going to come from today, really where this came from was over the past several years, I've been coaching agents that are doing 20 million, 30 million, 50 million, 80 million in volume, in annual volume. One of the things that's really been a topic of interest of mine is why do so many top real estate teams have huge sales volume and yet actually make very, very little profit or extremely low profit margins? And so what we're going to teach today is really just a 45-minute or so snippet from a 24-week advanced leadership and business class that I teach through Glover U. We're going to give you just kind of a small portion of that. But where this content specifically came today was from an agent that I started coaching probably 4 years ago or so, who had a very impressive business. After only 4 years in the business, she was doing about 30 million in volume. And so because of that, she had at 3% commission or so, she had about $1 million flowing in gross commission income. And yet when I started working with her and we really actually opened up the hood to her business, what we discovered was she was actually making less than a 4% profit margin. So to put that in other terms, she had $1 million flowing into her business, and yet at the end of the day, she was making less than $40,000 a year. In fact, when we actually dug in deeper, she was making less money than anybody else on her team, which really prompted me to come up with this material, because at the end of the day, I think we'd all agree on this call, if you're going to have $1 million coming into your business, you'd certainly like to keep more than 4% of that. And so this is really a conversation of how do we increase our profit margins? How do we make sure that we're not making the mistakes that keep our profit really low? And so let's get really clear as we dig into this. The size of your business, the number of homes you sell, your sales volume, your GCI, by themselves, they are meaningless vanity metrics. The only metric that matters, the only metric that you can actually fund your life with, is profit. And so everything we're going to talk about today is profit. So now I'm a super visual person, so I actually have a slide presentation that we're going to go through. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Just bear with me. All right, hopefully you can see that on my screen. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go into a conversation of why do so many large businesses actually make so little profit. And so to do that, we actually have to start with the foundation of this. There's actually three distinct muscle groups in which, if we're going to build a super successful business, one that really funds our life at the highest level, we have to acknowledge that there are actually three different muscles that we must use. And the challenging part is they are all completely unrelated. Having one does not actually necessitate that we're going to be skilled in the other two. In fact, they're completely unrelated. So the first sales skill, the one that we talk about in the industry, and just for clarification, the one that is the most important from a foundational standpoint, are sales skills. So sales skills are our ability to use scripts and dialogues. They're our ability to present well. They're our ability to influence and to cause people to make a certain decision. And our industry actually does a pretty good job of teaching sales skills. There's a lot of resources throughout North America that agents can take advantage of to learn sales skills. And now, here's the cool thing about sales skills is regardless of what happens to the economy or any of the circumstances that we're currently facing, sales skills will always allow an individual to generate cash. If you can sell, you'll always have an ability to make an income and survive. The challenge with sales skills is that at the end of the day, they don't actually lend themselves to a business. They just mean that we have a job. In other words, if we can sell, we're going to be able to make cash, but we don't necessarily have an entity that outside of ourselves can survive on its own. So we can make good cash, but we don't have an entity that is going to just continue on even if we didn't show up on any given day. So then after that, after sales skills, and again, that is the foundational piece. Then we transition to business skills, and I'm going to break business skills out into two phases. So this first one, which is actually what we're going to talk about today, is how do you build a sustainable business, one that incorporates the right systems, the right tools, and the right proven business models that improve efficiencies within our business, and actually that's what grows our profit margins. Again, right now, when we see a lot of sales teams that are making a lot of money coming into the business and low margins, it's because they don't have the efficiencies in the models and the systems within their business to increase those margins so that they're actually keeping more profit. The third one, which we're not going to dive too deep into, we go into it quite a bit in our Glover U 24-week business mastery class, is leadership skills. And I always like to associate leadership skills with freedom, meaning that our success is through others. And so that freedom word doesn't mean that we aren't working super hard. It just means that we get to transition to working on the things that we want because we're able to put other people in to fill the gaps in those other spaces that maybe we want to move past. One of the big mistakes that we see in our industry a lot of times is we see these big gurus up on stage with these huge businesses, and let's say maybe they have 20 agents or 30 agents on their team, and when we see them up on stage, we automatically associate, well, that they must be amazing leaders, and that's actually a mistake. Being able to build a large sales team is actually a function of sales skills, not leadership skills. Recruiting people into your business is a sales function. Now, keeping them is a leadership function. Of course, what we see from a lot of teams is they've got kind of a churn and burn. It's 3 people join the team every month and 3 people exit out the back door. Next month, 3 people join the team and 3 people exit the back door. That means they've mastered sales skills. They've mastered the ability to pull the people in. They have not mastered leadership skills, the ability to actually retain them. The last portion here that we're not going to get into today is the second phase of business skills. And this is where we really get to build an empire. This is where we're able to scale our business. We're able to maximize profitability. We're able to increase the opportunity that business actually gives us. In other words, it's the way that we use our capital, our time, and our talent to maximize the scope of our business. And that's when we can actually build as big of empire as we want. So let's jump in today. I told you we're gonna focus on the phase one business skills. Now, by the way, what we're gonna talk about today is this is not beginner issues. These are issues that we see from very successful businesses that have grown, that have built something of significance. And it's the mistakes that they make in that building, or it's the mistakes they make after they've built. So these are not rookie mistakes that we're going to jump into. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip of coffee real quick. All right, so we're going to hit the 4 common phase one business mistakes. These are the 4 most prevalent mistakes that I've seen as I've evaluated top teams throughout North America. And here's what we're going to hit. The first one is we're going to talk about side hustles, all the rage. We're going to talk about specifically the lack of sequential progression and why it holds many business people back. Then we're going to hit. We're going to talk about moving away from an administrative and operations model too early. In other words, the sequential progression of hiring people into our business. And we're going to make a case for why, for those of you guys that have read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, why when Gary talks about the sequential hiring, it's not an emotional argument. We're actually going to take a peek under the hood from 2 different vantage points of why it's actually critical that we hire people in the right order. Third, we're talking about the misunderstanding of how ROI, or return on investment, actually works. Now, most people understand the definition of return on investment, but the implementation into their business actually is incorrect. We're going to talk about how to actually implement it. And then the last one we're going to hit is one of the 2 biggest reasons that many large sales teams actually don't make any significant profitabilities, because they have an unsustainable agent comp model. And we're going to talk about how that works. Okay, jumping through, let's hit the first one, side hustles, or the lack of sequential progression. So if you're in our industry, and many industries like this, the fact is you can't escape the energy around side hustles or multiple streams of income. And let me be really clear. At this point in my career, I own several businesses. I have several multiple streams of income coming in, and so I'm all for multiple streams of income. And yet, here's the fascinating thing: when you're approached with side hustles or other opportunities to do, when you look at the people that have actually built significant wealth over time, they very likely do have multiple streams of income coming in. However, the challenge is that the typical vernacular that the average person uses around side hustles, the way they approach side hustles or multiple streams of income, is very different than that of the people that have actually built a lot of wealth through multiple streams of income. And it all has to do with the order in which they approach how they're building multiple streams of income. And so what it really comes down is to the challenge. And for those of you guys that are with Keller Williams and you've read The One Thing, you understand that Gary lays out a case that effectively says success is sequential, not simultaneous. In other words, we do one thing at a time and then layer the next thing on top of the first thing, and so forth and so forth. We don't do multiple things at once. Now, the people that build significant wealth over time, they understand this principle. Now, I'm going to show you how you actually build multiple streams of income the correct way here in just a second. But let's come from the framework of understanding, if we were to use Gary's parable, and I'm paraphrasing from The One Thing, if I were to take you into a meadow and a big, wide open field and release 2 rabbits simultaneously and tell you to catch both of them at the same time, how many would you catch? And if you've read the book, we know you'd catch none, because what would happen is you would chase the first one. And yet, as you got close to the first one, out of the corner of your eye, you'd see the second one. And so you would stop, you would pivot, and you would then go chase the second one. And yet, as you got closer to catching the second one, out of the corner of your other eye, you would see the first one changing directions. You would stop, you would pivot, and you'd go chase the second one. And so fundamentally, chasing 2 rabbits actually causes us to catch no rabbits. In other words, we can actually line this up from a math standpoint. I know we all got into real estate because we loved math. But if we were to focus on only catching 1 rabbit to the exclusion of everything else, that would dramatically increase our likelihood of actually accomplishing that one thing, so to speak. In other words, the math would be 1 plus 0, meaning 1 plus nothing else would actually equal 1. Now, the problem is, for most people, they think that if they actually do 2 or more things, they're going to get bigger results, but that's not true. because we still only have 24 hours in a day. So if we're trying to accomplish two things simultaneously, then we would at least hope if I spend half my time here and half my time here, I'm still going to accomplish one. But we're missing out on the fact that every time we have to stop and pivot and go from one thing to the other, that's actually wasted time, energy, bandwidth, and just the ability to refocus on that next thing takes time and energy away. So unfortunately, we're then left with a mathematical equation of one half of our time plus another half of our time only equals 3/4. In essence, we get far less through the same level of activity than we do if we just focus on one thing. Lastly, here's what I would say about side hustles. When you're approached with side hustles is, if the side hustle is so great that you're being presented to, my question for that individual is always, why wouldn't you go spend all of your time on the side hustle and leave your main hustle and go do that? And the truth is, most side hustles at the end of the day actually won't get us where we want to go. So let me lay out the case. How then do you build multiple streams of income? How do you actually build a vehicle for long-term wealth creation? And to do so, we're going to use an analogy that's actually what I call the 5-lane highway. In other words, how to build a 5-lane highway the right way. So let's say, congratulations, you've just been contracted to build a 5-lane highway in your area to connect one side of your city to the other side of your city. Perhaps your city needs a more efficient transportation way to get cars from one side to the other. And so, in other words, you're looking to connect 2 points, point A in your city to point B in your city. Now, if you were to build a 5-lane highway, you would need a lot of heavy machinery. You would need a lot of raw materials. You would need a lot of manpower. Now, while you don't need those things to build your real estate business, you do need a lot of resources. You do need a lot of time. You do potentially need a lot of people, depending on your goals. And so either way, you're still trying to connect point A from where you are today to point B, which is your goal in building your real estate business. Now, here's how most people would build a 5-lane highway. And by the way, here's how most people build their real estate business. They start out at point A with all of their heavy machinery, all of their raw materials, all of their manpower, and they start building the first lane. And yet they get to a point after building the first lane just a little bit, and they say, well, this is supposed to be a 5-lane highway. Or in our real estate business, well, we're supposed to have 5 different lead generation strategies. And so they stop. They stop and they say, all right, boys, move all the heavy machinery, all the raw materials, all the manpower back to point A, back to the starting point, and let's build lane 2. And they get to a certain point, lane 2, and say, okay, well, we've got a little bit of it built, but we're supposed to have 5 lanes. So let's move all the heavy machinery, all the raw materials, all the manpower back to point A, back to the starting line. And then they build a little bit of lane 3, and then lane 4, and then lane 5. And these are the people we see on stage saying, well, look, I got 5 streams of income. And yet, if you were actually peek under the hood, you'd realize that none of the lanes actually connect point A to point B. In other words, if this was a highway system, we have 5 lanes that can't get anyone from point A to point B. Instead, wouldn't it make sense to build your highway like this? Wouldn't it make sense to start with all of your heavy machinery, all of your raw materials, all of your manpower, and start at point A and start building lane 1? But instead of going back to the finish line, just keep building it until you've connected all the way to point B. Now, not a trick question. We were assigned to build a 5-lane highway. At this point, do we have the single greatest 5-lane highway ever built? And the obvious answer is no, of course not. We only have 1 lane. Yet the second question is, at this point, do we have a viable highway? In other words, can we actually connect people from point A to point B? And the answer is absolutely yes. We can get cars from point A to point B. In other words, let's apply this to our lead generation strategies. Let's say that we wanted to build 5 distinct lead generation channels for our business. If we were to focus on building one out, and I mean really get it right, in other words, make that lead generation strategy viable, not just something we've dabbled in, not just something that we've kind of experimented with, but yet something that is actually viable and effective. So I'm just going to make up one off the top of my head. Let's say this is our open house system. Here's where it gets cool, is that if we've actually built a viable lane, that means our open house system is at that point making us a significant amount of money. This is where it gets cool, because I can say, hey, Bob, come over here. Hey, listen, I have spent the last significant amount of time building out a phenomenal open house system. Now, I've studied the best agents from across North America and learned exactly what they've done to build a super effective open house program, and I've implemented in that. Now, because I've spent all of my time focused on this, this is now making us a very significant amount of money. Now, what I'd love for you to do, Bob, I'd love for you to come work with me. I want you to run this lane. I want you to run our open house division. Now, your job is to maintain it, to grow it, to make sure that we're always able to connect point A to point B through our open house program. And because it brings in a significant amount of money, I'm going to be able to pay you very, very handsomely. You're going to be able to make a lot of money because of this. Are you in? And so Bob comes and runs our open house division, which then means I don't have to run that anymore. I now have time freed up to do what? To build lane 2. And so let's say that's our farming program. And so I spend a significant amount of time, because I'm no longer doing open houses. By the way, I'm now making a nice income, even after I pay Bob from our open house program. I'm spending a significant amount of time on building our farming system. And so I study agents from all over North America who are the best of the best at farming. And I implement all of their strategies until I get to a point where I have a very viable lane that connects people from point A to point B. In essence, I can make a lot of money coming into my business from farming. And so I come to Sally and say, hey, Sally, come over here. I've spent the last significant amount of time building out an amazing farming program. This is one of the absolute best in North America. I would love for you to run this program. Your job is to nurture, is to grow it. It is to make sure that it continues to bring us a great return. Because it makes a lot of money, I'm going to be able to pay you really nice. And now I have Bob running open houses and Sally running farming, which means I don't have to run either. Gives me now the time to go build lane 3. And let's just say that's social media. I finished that out because I studied the best of the best, and I bring somebody else to run it. Then I build the 4th and the 5th. Now, I now have a 5-lane highway. But here's the trick. Here's the secret. This is the path to wealth creation that most people don't get. It's at this point I have an asset, because I have 5 people running each of the lanes of my business. It's at that point that I now have a business that could generate a significant amount of profit coming into my pocket. Now, if I wanted to go explore that other opportunity or that other stream of income, I have something that's leveraged, meaning I'm no longer having to split part of my time here or part of my time here. I can go make that the one rabbit that I'm chasing, because this rabbit has already been caught. All right. So you can apply this to lead generation. You can apply this to different businesses. You can apply this to different streams of income. At the end of the day, remember that it's one lane at a time. In other words, success is sequential, not simultaneous. It's the sequential build, then leverage it out, then build the next, leverage it out, build, leverage it out, and so forth and so forth. All right, let's go to the second, which is moving away from an administrative or operations model too early. Now, I alluded to before, in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Gary Keller absolutely lays out a sequential progression in how we hire. And yet we see agents throughout North America, they read it, they say, yeah, okay, cool. What does this Gary Keller really know, though? I'm going to do it differently. And so I'm going to build 2 cases for why leaving an administrative-based option, meaning hiring buyer agents too early, why it is destructive to our business. And so we're going to build 2 cases on that. So first, to do that, on your screen, you should see 2 axes. You should see the vertical axis is profit. So starting at the bottom is $0 in profit, all the way to infinite dollars in profit for your business. And then the horizontal axis is time. So starting out at day 0 and then going to time in the future. And so let's say we have an agent. We'll call her Sarah. And Sarah starts out as a standalone agent. She just gets licensed. And so she starts out her career. And of course, on day 1, she's making no profit because she hasn't sold any homes. And yet over a period of time, Sarah grows her business. She grows her business over a period of time until she hits a ceiling. In other words, Sarah grows her business to the point that there is no longer enough time in a day, because we're all limited to 24 hours a day, to where she can service any more clients. She's simply maximized the amount of homes she can sell by herself. There is no more time. And so we're going to oversimplify this example just to drive home the point. But let's say Sarah finds herself in a situation where she has 10 people a month that legitimately want to do business there. And yet, because she's limited by 24 hours in a day, she only has enough time, energy, and bandwidth to actually handle 5 of those people. Now, this is a great problem Sarah's created for herself. She's done an amazing job to get here. And yet, for most agents, when they get here, they recognize that, okay, I can only take care of 5 people at a time, but I've got 10 people that legitimately want to work with me. So I'm literally leaving money on the table. I need to bring leverage into my business so that I can capitalize on all of those people that actually want to work with me. So at that point, we have 2 options. The first option is we recruit a buyer's agent first instead of hiring an executive assistant or instead of hiring an operations person. And this is the mistake that many agents make, because we often go here and there's a reason for it. Now, here's the reason, and I'm going to show it to you by showing you how most agents handle it unconsciously, meaning this isn't what they actually are saying. However, unconsciously, this is actually what they're doing. They go find an agent in their market center, a standalone agent who maybe they're doing okay, but they're not blowing it out of the water. And in this case, we're using Sarah as the agent in this example. And so maybe she goes finds an agent in her market center. She says, Sam, hey, you know how you're a standalone agent? So as a standalone agent, Sam, you're the jack of all trades, meaning you've got to do all the marketing, all the operations, all the administrative, all the servicing of clients, because you don't have any help. You got to do it all. Now, Sam, because you're a standalone agent, because you're doing everything, then after you pay out your broker, you get to keep 100% of your commission. You get to keep everything else that comes in, because that's what a standalone agent gets to do. Well, Sam, I got an opportunity for you. Why don't you come work with me? See, I got some extra leads. Why don't you come work with me? Now, by the way, Sam, because I don't have anybody helping me with the operations, because I don't have anybody helping me with administrative or marketing, you're still going to have to do all of that in addition to servicing your clients. In other words, you're still going to have to do everything you did as a standalone agent. But here's where it gets cool, Sam. When you come work with me, not only do you get to do everything you already were doing, but you get to give me half your commission every time you sell your home. Are you in? Now, of course, that's not what Sarah's actually saying, yet that is actually what's happening. That's actually the conversation subconsciously that's occurring. And so, not a trick question, Sam comes and joins Sarah. So in the short term, does Sarah's business go up or go down? And in the short term, it goes up, because although Sarah was maximized with time to only be able to sell 5 people, and so because of that, of course, she doesn't train Sam, yet Sam has enough skill to, let's say Sam is able to sell 2 of those extra 5 leads that were existing every month. Now, all of a sudden, instead of selling 5 homes a month, Sarah's business is now selling 7 homes a month. Woohoo, clear victory, right? Except that at some point, Sam recognizes what is actually occurring, which was that recruiting pitch I just gave subconsciously. And that is where we have a big problem. Sam wakes up and recognizes, wait, I'm doing everything I was doing before, and yet I'm only getting to keep half my commission. This doesn't work for me. Now, at that point, 1 of 3 occurrences is going to happen. All of them are catastrophic to our profit. The first thing is Sam says, hey, Sarah, I love you, but this isn't working. I got to go to another team that's going to provide me some value, or it's going to provide some efficiency so I can actually sell more homes, not the same number of homes I was selling before on my own and having to do it all. That's the first option. The second option is, guess who gets to become Sam's EA? Sarah. Sarah doesn't want to lose Sam, so now Sarah is going to give operational bandwidth, do some of the administrative, do some of the marketing, because she doesn't want to lose Sam. Or the third possibility, it's the one that's most prevalent, is Sarah doesn't want to lose Sam, and so Sam says, well, I'll stay, but I need a better split. So instead of 50-50, I need to be on a 70-30, or I need to be on an 80-20. And I'll show you a little bit later on why that is absolutely catastrophic to a large business. And so Sarah says, okay, I'll give you a larger split, because I don't want to lose you, because I don't want to take the time to have to find someone else or get them up to speed, or Sam, you're really good, so I don't want to lose you. In all three scenarios, while Sarah's business grows, remember at the beginning I said size of business, number of homes sold, GCI, that does not matter. It's profit. In all three of these scenarios, even though Sarah's business will grow from 5 units a month to 7 units a month, her profit, the only metric that actually matters, goes down. So conversely, let's look at the same scenario where Sarah grows her business. This is the same scenario, grows her business, hits that same ceiling, and yet in this case, she actually, instead of hiring a buyer agent, she hires an administrative person first. She hires an executive assistant. Now, here's the interesting part. In the short term, if Sarah were to hire an executive assistant instead of the buyer agent, in the short term, does her business go up or does it go down? It goes down. Because remember, Sarah was already maximized in her time to serve 5 people. And yet now she brings on Bob as her executive assistant. And guess what? Sarah now has to train Bob. So that she has to take time and energy and bandwidth away from focusing on her clients and actually train Bob, which means it's very likely, because Bob's not servicing clients, Bob's an executive assistant, not an agent. It's very likely Sarah's business goes from 5 homes a month down to 4. So whoa, that can't make sense, right? Except that what happens if Sarah's hired correctly, let's assume she's hired correctly, and she spends 90 days really training Bob, then what happens is after 90 days, Bob owns the marketing. Bob owns the administrative. He owns the operational components, which means Sarah no longer has to do those functions. Now, for most of us as agents, we know we spend half of our time servicing clients and half of it on the administrative stuff. So after 90 days, when Bob owns all of those administrative things, Sarah literally has half of her day back. So instead of being able to serve 5 deals a month, because she has Bob, now Sarah can go serve another 3, another 4, another 5 people. Her business skyrockets. Now, that's the operational reasons why we hire an executive assistant. But let me show you to you from a financial standpoint. Now, this is the point I always invite you. If you need a throw-up bag, this is the time to go grab that, because I'm going to show you why hiring in the wrong sequential order is destroying agents' profitability. So same scenario. This is still Sarah's business, nothing different. We're just going to look at it from a number standpoint, from a financial standpoint. So let's say in that same period of time, Sarah grows her business to $10 million in volume. $10 million in volume means at a 3% commission, she's making $300,000 in GCI coming into her business. Now, let's assume that 50% of her business is buyers. So that would mean that the GCI coming in, her gross commission income coming from the buyer side, is $150,000. Let's look at our 2 options. So we're going to reverse the order a little bit. Let's say option 1, Sarah hires an executive assistant. She pays that person $40,000. So she pays Bob $40,000. That leaves Sarah, and I'll explain what this term means in a second. That leaves Sarah, after she's paid Bob, with a gross income prior to overhead, OH stands for overhead, of $260,000. Now, gross income prior to overhead means that after Sarah has paid Bob, she has $260,000 left over to cover all of her other expenses, and whatever's left over, she gets to keep as profit. All right, so that's option 1. She hires Bob and pays Bob $40,000 salary as an executive assistant. Or option 2 is she hires Sam, the buyer agent, pays her a 50-50 split on all the buyer side transactions, which means then Sam is getting paid $75,000. In other words, a 50-50 split off of the $150,000 buyer GCI. You can see it at the top of your screen, which now leaves Sarah, instead of $260,000, it only leaves her with $225,000. Now, remember, Sarah still has the same other expenses tied to her business. So what that means is Sarah, and I'll do the math for you, is left with a profit difference of $35,000. In other words, because she hired a buyer agent instead of an executive assistant, Sarah just literally lost $35,000 in profit like that. Poof. In other words, Sarah actually could have hired effectively two full-time operations people, 2 full-time administrative people for the same cost, that she is paying out to that buyer agent. But wait, it gets worse. Because in either of those scenarios, whether Sarah hired the EA Bob or the buyer agent Sam, in either of those scenarios, she could have easily, without making any other hires, grown her business from 10 million in volume to 15 million in volume. So at 15 million in volume, you can see what that does to the GCI. You can see what that does to the buyer side GCI, because we're going to assume that still 50% of the business is coming from buyers. So let's look at our two scenarios. Well, in option one, the truth is Bob doesn't really need to have had a raise. Maybe Sarah gives Bob a little bit of a raise to 42 or 43,000. Either way, it's not going to make a huge difference. He's still going to make about the same level between 10 million in volume and 15 million in volume. So you can see Sarah's gross income prior to overhead in this scenario. Yet let's look at option two with Sam, the buyer agent, at that 50-50 split. Look at the difference in gross income prior to overhead, and I'll do the math for you. Guys, that's a profit difference of $72,500. That's $72,500 that is not going into Sarah's personal bank account, that is not funding Sarah's life, that is not putting food on the table for Sarah's kids. In other words, in this example, Sarah could have hired almost 3 full-time operations people for the same cost as bringing on one buyer agent. Now, there is a point where bringing on agents absolutely makes sense. However, one of the big mistakes that many agents make is they hire their buyer agents too early in the process. Now, in our 24-week Glover U Business Mastery class, we go through the sequential progression, and we go through exactly when and how you should make each additional hire into your business. However, in this case, understand our first hire, for 2 conceptual reasons, needs to be an administrative person, not an agent. All right, let's go to the third one, misunderstanding how return on investment actually works. Now, most people understand the definition of return on investment means that for every dollar I spend, I'm going to get a return on that dollar. In other words, if I get a 2-to-1 return on investment, that means for every dollar I spend, I'm actually going to make $2. Most people understand that concept. However, how they apply it to their business is where they're having their issues. So to start out, a couple things. First off, we're going to presume that our business is the box on your screen, and we're going to show you how the financial dynamics of money coming into your business and exiting your business apply to this box. But before we do that, let's talk about this phone pitch that we've all received and we're all going to continue to receive. And let's say it's from Acme Leads. And the phone pitch basically looks like this. Hey, Matt, this is John from Acme Leads. And hey, I've got an opportunity for you. I know in our past conversation, you had mentioned that your average commission was $6,000. And so I've got a great opportunity for you. I would love to sell you some leads. And why don't we do this? I'll sell you $6,000 worth of leads. And now here's what's cool, Matt, is that for every deal you do, if you simply sold one home from all of those leads, it pays for itself. Now imagine, Matt, if those $6,000 leads, if you sold 2 homes from it, you would be rolling in the money. All right, so let's explore that a little bit. First, let's understand that in our business, we have money that flows into our business. In other words, that's GCI, gross commission income. So we have our gross commission income flows into our business, but of course, we don't actually get to keep all of that money because our business has expenses. Now, there's 2 types of expenses that occur in our business, and you don't need to understand the differences between them for this purposes, yet the 2 types of expenses are, the first one is cost of sales. Now, cost of sales, again, without getting too deep into the weeds, are things like referral fees. They are things like the split to your company, or if you have agents on your team, they are what you pay out to them if they sell a transaction. Another type of cost of sales might be a third-party transaction coordinator that only gets paid when you actually when you actually close a home. So that's cost of sales. Every other type of expense is operating expenses. So so here's the thing to understand. You have two types of expenses. You don't need to understand the difference between them for this conversation. In our business mastery class, we go deep into the differences between them, but they are both expenses. They are both money that exits. Now, those percentages you see are actually what Gary Keller lays out in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. He says that our goal is that if 100% of our money comes into our business, then on average for high producing teams, 30% of that money is going to be applied to cost of sales. 30% is going to be applied to operating expenses. Again, don't worry if you don't understand the difference between the two of them. Just understand they're both expenses. So cumulatively, for every dollar coming into our business, 60 cents is exiting as some type of expense, leaving us 40% left over, and that's our profit. That's the amount of profit we get to keep. Now, by the way, for large businesses, that 40%, which is called our profit margin, is actually really high. The number of businesses actually getting to 40% is actually the norm. So what I'm going to show you right here for most agent businesses is actually far worse than this example I'm going to use here. In other words, let's look at a single transaction. So let's say that on a single transaction, the business makes $6,000 in gross commission income. So they sell a $200,000 house at a 3% commission, and they get $6,000 coming into their business. Well, at 30% cost of sales and 30% operating expenses, doing the math, 30% of $6,000 is $1,800. So that $6,000 transaction comes in, yet $1,800 exits as a cost of sale, $1,800 exits as an operating expense, leaving us with profit of only $2,400. So let's go back to that call from Acme Leads. I'm going to sell you $6,000 worth of leads. If you only sell one home, it pays for itself. No, it doesn't. Because on one $6,000 transaction, we only get to keep $2,400. But of course, the sales pitch was, imagine if you only sold two homes, you would be rolling in it. So let's look at that and see if that's the case. So up on the screen here is, we're going to look at a few scenarios for return on investment. So we've got GCI, cost of sales, operating expenses, and profit. Let's look at a 2-to-1 ROI. 2-to-1 ROI, meaning that when we spend $6,000, we're going to get twice that coming back into our business. So I spend $6,000. At that 2-to-1 return on investment, I sell two homes. I have $12,000 come into my business. Woohoo, right? We're kicking tail at this point, right? Except that, remember, I still have to service all of that business. I still have the same cost of sales. I still have the same operating expenses. So 30% of $12,000 is $3,600 for cost of sales and $3,600 for operating expenses. When I do the math here, then, that leaves me with a profit of, negative $1,200. In other words, I sold two homes and I've lost $1,200. Now, let me go back and say this again. For large businesses, and I would say typically for businesses at 20 million and volume and up, 40% profit margin is the target. It's the goal. It's I don't want to call it the holy grail in that it's unachievable, yet it's not easy to get to 40%. Right now, the average profit margin we're seeing in large businesses is only about 20%. So if that was the case, instead of a $1,200 loss, you're actually looking at a $2,400 loss from selling those two homes. So, a 2-to-1 ROI doesn't work. What about a 3-to-1? So 3-to-1, we spend that same $6,000, but in this case, we sell three homes. So we have $18,000 coming into the business. We have our cost of sales and our operating expenses, which leaves us with a profit of $1,200. Okay, so great. We actually made money in this scenario. Yet let's go a layer deeper. We made $1,200 in profit to sell three homes, which means 1,200 divided by 3 means we made profit of $400 per transaction. $400 per transaction. Now, take that $400 and divide it by the number of hours you worked to get that transaction closed. When you do the math, you're going to find that your dollar per hour income makes that McDonald's opportunity look really good. That McDonald's opportunity flipping burgers is probably better than the dollar per hour you made at a 3-to-1 ROI on this. So what about 4-to-1? 4-to-1, we spend that same $6,000 and yet we sell 4 homes. $24,000 comes in. We got our cost of sales, we got our operating expenses, leaves us with profit. Now we're doing a little bit better. But again, go back, do that math. 3,600 divided by 4 homes sold, still means profit of only $900 divided by the number of hours you've worked. Still not looking really good. Here's the truth on ROI. I have no issue with buying leads. Leads could absolutely make sense for your business. Yet when you're getting that call from Acme Leads and they're saying, what if you sold 2 homes? You're going to be rolling in the money. What you really need to be asking is, I'll buy these leads if I get a minimum of 6-to-1 return. It's not till 6-to-1, meaning I'm going to make 6 times more in GCI that I'm spending. It's not till 6-to-1 that's going to make any sense to do that. Now, 6-to-1 is okay. What we really want is 8-to-1. We really are looking for 8-to-1. And now here's why. While 6-to-1 is fine, it's also true that in our business, we have certain expenses that don't actually generate us a return on investment, like signage or lock boxes or our realtor dues. They don't actually make us a return on investment. So we really need 8-to-1 from anything that can generate us a return on investment, because that offsets all the expenses that don't make us any money. So 6-to-1 is acceptable. 8-to-1 is actually what we're targeting. All right, last one, and then we are done for the day, and you guys can kick off with the rest of your morning. We're going to talk about operating off of unsustainable agent comp models. This is a very quick one, and yet, as I alluded to at the beginning of today, it is one of the 2 biggest reasons that most large real estate businesses make very little profit and extremely low profit margins. This is killing the majority of most real estate teams. So to introduce this concept, and as I said, this is a very quick one, let's go with this scenario in which our average sales price is $300,000 at a 3% commission. That means that our business is making $9,000 in total gross commission income. And going back, and again, I'm oversimplifying. We're going to say that our operating expenses are at that 30%. In other words, we're spending about $2,700 on average per transaction for all of our other expenses, whether that's our rent, whether that's our supplies, whether that's our marketing, whether that's our listing photography, whatever it is, doesn't matter. All combined together, that's averaging about $2,700 per transaction. So let's look at a single sale. If we didn't have an agent, meaning that we as the Rainmaker are doing 100% of the business, we only have an executive assistant, or we have 2 or 3 administrative people, we don't have any other agents on the team. So on a single transaction, that $9,000 in GCI comes in. We're not paying out a buyer agent. The business gets to keep that $9,000 without paying anything out to other agents. So we take that $9,000, and again, I'm oversimplifying here, and we have the expenses on average $2,700. So for a single transaction in this scenario, we would be left with a profit per unit of $6,300. If you were to do the math, if an agent wanted to net $500,000 a year, net, pre-tax net $500,000 a year, in this scenario, they need to sell about 80 homes a year, and they would net $500,000. Now, that's how this would work without having a buyer agent on the team. And yet, let's say we do bring a buyer agent. Now, here's the scenario. We bring a buyer agent in, and we put them in a 50-50 split. So they're going to keep 50% of the commission for every home they sell. The business will receive 50%. Of course, they don't get to keep that because they have expenses. You can see it here. So on that $9,000 commission, 50% goes out to the buyer agent. That's gone from the business, gone. The business receives the other $4,500, but by the way, the operating expenses don't change. They're still the same. There's still the same cost for marketing. There's still the same cost for occupancy. There's still the same cost for supplies. There's still the same cost for dues. All of that still continues to exist. So that $2,700 is still the expense for that transaction. Look what happens to the profit per unit. Instead of $6,300, it goes to $1,800. More dramatically, look at the number of units that business must sell to net $500,000. It goes up by 200 units. Now, let me pause. As I said before, there are points in your business, it absolutely makes sense to bring on agents. However, many rainmakers are in such a rush to get out of production that they hire agents too early. And you can see at a 50-50 split what that does to your profitability for every buyer side transaction that a buyer agent works on. But wait, it gets worse. Because as I said in the earlier example around Sarah hiring Sam and not having a value proposition, not having operating people and administrative people and marketing people that can support Sam, the buyer agent's business, to be able to sell more transactions so she's actually making more money. Sam says, I need a higher commission split because you have no other value that you can provide me. So I have to leave unless I get a 60-40 split. Well, let's look what happens the second Sam starts making a 60-40. Still the same operating expenses. Look at the profit per unit. Now, Mrs. Mega Agent is only making $900 in profit per unit. Look at the number of homes that now must be sold by that business to net $500K. What about 70-30? Sam says, I'm not leaving. Or excuse me, I'm not staying unless I get at least 70% because it's just, you don't have any other value for me. Congratulations, Mrs. Business Owner. For every transaction that Sam sells, you make $0 in profit. You took all the risk, you have all the liability, and yet you make $0 in profit. 80-20, every time Sam, and there's a lot of businesses right now whose profitability is propped up because of the Rainmaker's production. Yet if they were actually to do the calculation, they would find that the transactions coming from many of the agents on their team, because of their split, they're actually breaking even at best and potentially even losing money for every transaction. So real quick, for those of you guys that may have found this content to be helpful and you are really focused on building not just a large business, but a business that generates a lot of profit, that funds your life, that builds wealth, that changes the financial thermostat for your descendants, for your kids and your kids' kids, that creates generational wealth. For those of you guys that are really interested in that, I did allude to, we do offer a 24-week leadership and business mastery program through Glover U. And you can see the scope of what we discussed in that class. I will tell you, as I said before, this is not a class for people that are still figuring out the business or still developing their sales skills. This is for people that are extremely effective with their sales skills, that already have at least a decent business, or they're on pace to have a decent business, and they really want to build something that's both powerful, sustainable, and highly leveraged. You would expect in this class, this is going to be like an upper level university class. This is extremely high level, 24 weeks, comprehensive in developing people to become both great leaders and just as importantly, to become great business people. Not a sales pitch. We've got our next session starting in early June. It will sell out because we cap registrations at 25 people. The reason we do that is because we do want to have a lot of one-on-one interaction, and beyond 25 people, it gets a little bit more challenging. And so if you're interested in being one of those 25 people, and we're starting the first week of June, you can check out gloveru.com/business mastery for more information. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And I know I can't see you guys and I can't hear from you. So Amanda, I don't know if there's any questions, or I'm not even sure if we have the ability to take any questions. Yet if we do, I've got a couple more minutes if there's anything I can be helped with. Otherwise, I can send everybody on their way to have a great day. Your call. I don't know if you can hear me, Amanda. Oops. Okay, cool. Awesome. And okay, cool. Let me give my email address. I don't know if they can see. Can they see when I type something into the group chat? Are they able to see that? Okay, cool. Awesome, awesome. So that's the website if you're interested in more information on the Business Masterclass. Yet that's not the reason that I teach this class. I'm really just passionate about helping agents grow their businesses effectively. So in addition, you can see my email address. It's mattsutter@gloveru.com. If you have any questions on any of this content, or if you'd like a copy of the slide deck, which I'm more than happy to provide, shoot me an email at mattsutter@gloveru.com. Happy to answer any questions or send you a copy of the slide deck if that would be helpful. And I'll leave it at that. I hope this was a productive session for all you guys. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and let me know how I can be a resource. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow. How many people we got on this morning? 73 people this morning. I hope you found that very informative. I've taken probably 3 pages of notes, plus lots of pictures of the slides you had up there. And for those that are really interested in this, it might be worth your while to go on and ask Matt for his slide deck so you can go through them at your leisure. But I think the important part of what he was saying is making sure that you hire the right people at the right time. And if you follow the Keller Williams Millionaire Real Estate book, the Red Book, it sort of lays out what your first hire should look like. And we always tend to hire a buyer agent before we hire an admin. Your admin person, in my estimation, is the glue that holds everything together, and it's the most important position in building your profit. So thank you again, Matt, for doing this for us. It was very, very good, and I'm sure that the people on this call got something out of it. So I'm going to give you a quick COVID-19 update, and then we're going to turn this over to David. Just to let you know that we have no new cases. We have 121 cases, only 1 active, known in the hospital, known in ICU, and we have tested over 21,000 individuals in the province of New Brunswick. Everything is starting to open up a little bit more. When you watch the news and you watch what's happening around us, it's still very, very much a pandemic. And I think that maybe this is selfish to say, but I think New Brunswickers got it right. I think that we're practicing social distancing. We're practicing wearing a mask when we need to wear a mask and washing our hands and doing all the right things. That's why we're probably, well, not only probably, we are fighting this deadly disease to the ground, and we are in the best position ever in all of the provinces across the country. So thank you, thank New Brunswickers, thank the government, thank public health for staying vigilant, and let's maintain this so that we do not have to go back to red or any other color, but moving forward to that green color in the very near future. So with any further ado, I'm going to call up David Whalen, the Director of Technology, to give us a bit of a report on his last 2.5 months' work. David, you're on.
Well, thank you, Austin. First of all, let me say it's a pleasure to be here. It's amazing. It's been a very busy last couple of months. I did get to speak with pretty much each and every one of you, and it was an experience. I know a little bit more about everybody and what they're doing and how they're running their business. I always go back to the conversation that Scott and Austin first had with me, talking about where their issue was, what their challenge was. They had 130 some agents, and they had a $1 billion system, and they weren't sure who was using what or what level, and so when I had that discussion with them, I thought about 3 things. Where are they in their adoption of technology? Where are they in their ability to absorb and use the technology? and how much do they want to incorporate in their business. Some people are really good at, the manual systems, using their books, using their day timers, their planners. They're doing it very well, and they're excellent at it, and they're very successful. The systems that we have are pretty amazing too. And what I see, when I talk about Steve Jobs, he provided the ultimate model for how you have a vision, you see what you want, and you do everything to achieve it. And I see Keller Williams doing that with their technology system. It's never good enough. It's always getting better every day, and they're driven by that. They have the team and the sales and the professionals working on it every day to get there. So our challenge was, how do we come up with a process that says, here is where we are today, let's baseline that. And we'll say, here's where every single agent is, here's where they are, here's where they want to get to, here's how we're going to get them there. So at the end of the day, we did the taps, and we had a 98% participation rate. That is phenomenal. It's wonderful to see those kind of numbers. And thanks to everybody who took the time to provide their access to them and time away from their business to help us achieve these stats. What's great, if I missed you, I'm still here. I'm still going to be here. Contact me whenever you're ready. I'll be ready to have a conversation with you and bring you into this conversation and help you grow your business. So feel free to reach out anytime. I'm here to help you. My success is your success. So I want you to know that I am here to do whatever it takes to make that happen. The stats, I'm a stats person. I'm a probability person. I can use data every way possible. I say to Jill all the time, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. If I can find a way to measure it, I will figure out a way to give you the advantage, to give Keller Williams the advantage, to give every agent the advantage. So let's go to the next slide. My challenge was, how do I make the most effective use of your time? I wanted to keep it under an hour, and I had a couple of goals. I had to, A, figure out where you were in your current tech adoption level. I had to, B, train you, give you the basics, the core of command. And every one of you that I sat with on the Zoom calls, it was my first time using Zoom. I've used every other technology, but Zoom was my first. We talk about the profile, we talk about settings, and we talk about the dashboard and contacts. Those four things, when you get those right, you can build a mega business on top of that. Those are the four most basic things. And again, your profile, it's internal to Keller Williams. It's what people look for when they're going to reach out and grow their referral network. Your settings, that's what you're connected to. All the programs that interact with command, that's what's going to make the difference between you doing campaigns, doing smart plans, doing opportunities. All those things are all around settings. Your dashboard, understanding the content of your database. We know that phone number and email and home address, civic address are the three most important pieces of information to nurture your database. And this supplemental information that goes along with it, birthdays, anniversaries, kids' birthdays, those provide opportunities to use those three numbers, those three pieces of information to your advantage in automated nurturing. So, we also discussed the two most underutilized features of command that can be used by any agent right now to run their business, referrals and insights. Now you can add a third one, designs. And if you had no contacts in command, if you didn't want nothing to do with command, you can still do three things. You can use referrals and grow your network and potentially get referral business. You can use insights and use the tool within command, which allows you to essentially advertise businesses for free. And what do you get out of it? You get another contact and you get a potential lead gen source. Those are both two really good things to accomplish. And in designs, as long as you're hooked up to Facebook, and you really don't even have to be hooked up to Facebook, you can create a great design. There's hundreds of templates out there, and you can literally take that template and you can download it and use it on your personal Facebook away from the connection, or you can connect via settings. You connect to Facebook, and you can post direct to Facebook or any of those social media profiles. So, next slide. So here's what we came to. So after reviewing the stats, and again, there is a lot of stats. Again, my goal was to create a functional hour. 15 minutes was spent gathering your information, using your own profile, showing you with your own profile how to do the 4 pillars. And the next 45 minutes was training on, the 4 pillars. What we see from this is, again, some of these numbers are a little bit skewed. Now look at opportunities. Opportunities is one of the ones that, it's foundational. It's so important. The adoption of opportunities will actually increase your operational efficiency, solidify compliance, and move towards a more paperless office and paperless business. That's really important. During COVID, look what's happened. Leadership adapted, they pivoted to this crisis, creating documents that allow you to keep working so that you didn't lose market share, that you were able to function safely and interact with people based on guidelines. 6 weeks ahead of NBREA. That's impressive. When we look at the other stats, you can see why we wanted to baseline this, because the numbers that we see here provide a tremendous opportunity to grow. Not just grow the organization, but to grow your individual businesses. 40% using opportunities, it's probably around 30%, because if somebody has gone in and started their first opportunity and then left it, that's still in the numbers in 40%. So realistically, it's probably around 30, and I do have the exact numbers. Smart plans. We know we have some issues with smart plans. Those are getting better every day, and the commitment is there for us to use it. What's smart plans going to do for us? Automated nurturing. That's where you take your email address, your phone number, your civic address, and you apply birth dates and anniversaries, and you use that to automatically nurture all of your contacts. Every day you get a notification. Jimmy's birthday's in 5 days. Do you want to A, call him, B, text him, C, send him an email, or D, send something to his home address? You'll never miss it again once you automate. That's a big deal. And again, Matt talked about how we can, be more efficient, do the things that you like to do. Sometimes you get to hand stuff off, especially if you have an assistant. This is where this comes in, where you become more functional and able to do those things. On referrals, $3.1 billion last year can't be wrong. You can see last year outbound in Command, we had 22 outbound transactions that were recorded in Command. We had 9 inbound, actually 10 inbound as of the last one I looked at. That's 32 transactions out of $30.1 billion. Growing your referral network gets us a bigger piece of that. And I want every agent to take advantage of it and be successful with it. That's why I put it in my session. The same with Insights. Insights is very well underutilized at 4%. And again, walking into any business and say, I can advertise you on the greatest real estate system in the world, where we define every single network, every neighborhood, and we can advertise your business for free in there. And anybody who is moving to the neighborhood, anybody who's using our mobile apps can see the insights. So it's important. You get a contact and a potential lead gen. It's a win-win for all. So on the, what are we down to? Insights, I think that's it. Those are the main highlights. What we're going to talk about is, what do we do with all this data? And had the discussion with Scott and Austin and Amanda, and the most influential piece that we could take away from this data is to attack opportunities. And that was the decision. And the reason is, there's a lot of reasons. It ensures agents get paid in the fastest, most efficient time, because it tracks all the documents required for transmittal. That's important. We will be providing training. We're going to break out into small groups. Those that are interested or have dabbled in opportunities, we're going to take you aside and we're going to show you exactly how to do it. We're going to provide all the information. We're going to provide, when you talk about phases and stages and the checklists, we will hand feed you all of that and show you and walk you through how to do it so that you can adopt more of opportunities. And I think it will be a game changer in how we operate And again, moving towards that paperless, more efficient society. And Matt talked about efficiency. The system can do so much of this for you. Opportunity is like an engine. Once you build it once, everything rolls through it, which is amazing. Do it once, you know, you're gonna experience the pain of setting it up. We're gonna help you with that setup. We're gonna flatten the learning curve, to steal today's language. So that's what our number one goal is to assist agents and teams with integration or use of opportunities. We see why. We know what effect it will have overall. We know that the supporting activities obviously are your contacts. By definition, that is your database. That is your business. So having said that, you know, focusing on opportunities is also going to put indirect pressure or indirect influence on your database, which is awesome. Again, all activity, both positive and negative ads on your database are good activity. Okay, let's see the next slide. So we know Bold is happening. We had 80 agents enrolled. Whenever you have programs like this, especially one that is this well run and has this much content and so many people that are, you know, that are dedicated and are very, very knowledgeable. The most successful people in Keller Williams are standing on stage, standing on Skype or sitting on Skype and telling you how to be successful, what they did, what you can do, giving you scripts, giving you information, providing you with the tools and the knowledge to grow your business. Always will put a bump on all activity, whether it's, you know, database ads, whether it's you say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to build my opportunities for the first time. And you're going to build that. And you're going to run your first deal through it. Then you're going to run your second deal through it. Once you get to 5 deals, this is old hat. You know exactly what you have to do every time. The efficiencies Matt talked about in allowing you to do what you love to do is building the framework, especially in opportunities that will allow you to do more of what you love to do. Is it daunting at first? Listen, technology, some people adopt it better than others. Some people pick it up faster than others. But I can tell you, we are definitely dedicated to helping each and every agent who wants to adopt as much as they possibly can. We will do everything in our power to make sure you have that opportunity. So, again, the key takeaways: reset your mindset, ensuring you can overcome limiting beliefs and obtain big goals. The biggest one for us, guidance on how to mine your database and leverage command to run a digital savvy business. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to take away all of the fear. I'm here to understand it better than anybody else has understood it, and then take that knowledge and give it to everybody as much as I possibly can. That's my personal goal. And again, my success is your success and vice versa. Next slide. So, we showed a couple of weeks ago, we had the contacts in command. This is just, you know, based on 2 months of information, March to May. We had 35,000 contacts. We bumped to 37. Didn't really tell the story. It didn't tell the story. The net change was 2,730 contacts. But the details behind it told a much bigger story. 6,000 added and 3,300 removed. Both are fantastic activity. The absolute value, which is the value of the actual action. So it's 9,338 contacts, which is 27% of all contacts were actually modified or touched. So all activity is good activity, both adding and deleting. On Sunday, I went and I took another measure. And again, creating these repeatable processes that allow us to gauge where we are, use the stats to tell us how we're doing. I'm going to find out basically everything there is to know about how you win in Keller Williams. I'm going to try and influence that to your benefit and the benefit of Keller Williams as much as I possibly can. When you look at what's happened, this is the Bold bump. We're not even all the way through it, and already we have a net add of 1,043 contacts. That is awesome. Bold works. We know that it's proven. Keep up the good work and finish strong. And thanks to all agents for owning their accountability in the Bold Challenge. It is a challenge, And again, I see on the chats where people are, trying to live their lives. They have kids in the background. It's very difficult, but what I see is very encouraging. I look at the stats. The stats tell me everything I need to know, and it really encourages me to continue to move forward, to continue to mine data, to use things like the Low Report is a fantastic example of where your leadership team has taken data available to the world, and nobody else is using it like your leadership team is, to use it to their advantage and your advantage to grow this business and to grow your business. We're going to continue doing that. We're going to look for areas of data that exist that no one's used, that no one's even thinking about. We're going to put it out there. We're going to look at it. We're going to analyze it. We're going to come up with a plan. And we are going to benefit every single business in here and every person that wants to accept this challenge. And that's really what it is. Next slide. So we're going to leverage, analyze, and engineer more data-driven solutions than ever before to the advantage of our agents and the MC. And again, the Low Reports. When I first saw them, I was like, wow, this is really impressive. And I said to Austin, doesn't everybody have this? Well, yeah, everybody has it, but nobody's doing it. And that's a big advantage when we're recruiting. It's a big advantage when we're trying to say, set our goals, our GPS goals. How many agents do we need to grow by? How much of the market share do we have versus every other company? Nobody else is doing this. Your organization, your leadership team is doing this because it matters, because it's metrics, it's statistics, and we can influence those. We can apply positive pressure to any variable that we perceive to be an advantage to Keller and our agents. So, I accept the challenge. Make Keller Williams agents the most successful in New Brunswick and in Canada. Make KWNB the best MC in Canada and keep us there. And make KWNB a star player on KWRI or internationally. Keller Williams New Brunswick is always on the radar, and they have been for a while. And it's no secret. Your leadership has a vision, just like Steve Jobs had a vision, and are driving towards it. They're not just talking about it, they're actually doing it. And I see it every day, and I'm a part of it, and I love it, and it's probably the best job I've ever had in looking at this stuff and seeing how many people I can influence with my 38 years in IT. The technology and the corporate culture is what brought me here, and I guarantee I'll do everything I can, use every trick and tip in my toolbox to help you be successful. So, join us. Help me help you, and I promise we'll all grow and succeed together. And again, you've seen this 100 times. Together we achieve more. We are a team. We'll continue to be a team. Let's do this. I'm ready. Call me anytime. Everybody knows they text me, they call me on the weekends. I will respond in every way possible. It's fishing season. I'm going to encourage, this is my shameless plug for Miramichi. It's bass season, 3 weeks left. If you like fishing, you're going to want to be there. If you love fishing, you're reading this from the boat right now. So again, thank you everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I can't wait to see what our next steps entail for us. Thank you.